And I really appreciate your vulnerability in sharing that too with being a special needs mum, because it's a reality that if you are parenting a child with special needs, or you are also if you're parenting a child who is neurodivergent, so whether they have autism spectrum disorder or ADHD or one of those things, your everyday kind of quote unquote ordinary life is more stressful than other people. And I think that's important to acknowledge for yourself, because a lot of the time the stress is invisible to other people, whether it's because they don't see what you're dealing with at home, whether it's because for children who are neurodivergent, they might mask in public, whereas they're like open at home. And so I think that's really important to mention. And I also love what you said, using that example, because it's important that we say to our kids, hey, you don't have to tell them everything that happened, but hey, when I overreacted, it actually wasn't you, it was me. I had something happen today.
Welcome to Heels, Handbags, and Hustle. Step in faith, carry love, pursue God's calling. This is your host, Rachel Earp, and I'm so delighted that you found my show. My podcast is dedicated to encouraging women to be more bold, confident, and secure in their work and femininity. I've had the privilege of bringing on many outstanding women who share their journeys, stories, and successes with us. I believe women should embrace their God-given gifts and abilities without the entanglements of fear, comparison, or past mistakes. As a wife, business owner, and mom of 2 boys, one with Down syndrome, I have found such joy in the community of supportive women. My prayer is that this podcast elevates each person who listens and inspires a closer walk with God. Now, let's get to it, friends. Hey, friends, welcome to the show today. I have really been looking forward to creating this episode for all of you. Being able to invite so many special people onto this platform has been such a gift to me. And one of those gifts is sitting right here, I wish in person, but virtually right here, and joining us all the way from Australia, which is a first for the show. And I'm just so honored to have Sarah Boyd coming on and talking about so many things in regards to parenting and creating resilience within our children. So we're going to get into all of that. But before we do, Sarah, I just want to say what a treat it is to have you on here. I absolutely adore you, and I love your Australian accent. I'm just going to say
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm happy to be the first to take the podcast international for you.
Yes. We're going to put it on the map.
Yes, that's it. That's what we need to do.
Oh my goodness. I love it. So tell our listeners a little bit about your story, Sarah. We're going to talk a little bit later on about your book that's coming out, which I can't wait to dive into, because I feel like it is going to be such an amazing tool and resource for parents out there. But who is Sarah Boyd? Like, I know the Boyd name is recognized in a lot of business spaces. Yeah. So talk to us about who you are and how you got started and all the things that you do.
Yeah. So, hi, I'm Sarah. I run a community online called Resilient Little Hearts. It's an educational company teaching parents and teachers and professionals who work with children how to build resilience and emotional health in children. So my background is I studied psychology and completed a master's in educational psychology. But literally the day that I handed in my final thesis to complete my master's, I got a phone call from my doctor to say that he'd found a lump, an abnormality in my neck, and I needed to come in immediately. And it ended up actually being cancer. And so I spent the next 18 months going through treatment for an aggressive form of thyroid cancer. And then once I was all cleared, about 6 months later, we fell pregnant with my first child, who is now 12 years old. And so I think it was, for me, kind of the origin of why I started this work was obviously my background and training, but I think it was going through such a life-altering situation of cancer, coupled with becoming a mother so close together, that I really realized as much as I wish as a mum, and I have a mum's heart, that I wish I could protect my children from everything bad that would ever happen. But unfortunately, I don't have that power. The best thing I can do is to actually raise them in a way that teaches them resilience and emotional health and skills to help them regulate the hard things that will come along the way. And that comes from everything from their character, it comes from their faith, it comes to like emotional coping tools to help them along the way. And that's kind of where I got started. And I started Resilient Little Hearts, I want to say 6 years ago now. I feel like my brain is mush sometimes. So yeah, 6 years.
I can relate to that very well.
Yes. I think it's probably funny that you write a book on overstimulation, and that's what it's like. Isn't it true that you just like, you keep needing to learn the lessons of it?
It really is. And I think it's so funny you said that, because I was talking with a friend earlier today, and we were talking about oftentimes when God puts something in our heart that he wants to use, as far as maybe it's a painful experience, like in your case, a very grave and scary health issue. And a lot of times we think that if it's an ongoing thing that we're struggling with, whether it is trying to heal or just learning parenting and becoming a new mom in that journey and what it looks like, we think we have to have already done it, arrived. We know exactly what we're doing, and then I can give advice, and then I can write the book. Or
yes.
But oftentimes God wants to use us while we're still in it and as we're learning, because then it's so relatable. As for other moms that maybe they're dealing with a health scare or battling cancer or some issue, and they just feel like I feel alone in this, and I don't know what to do, and I just need someone to say, either I've been there, but I'm walking through a lot too. So I love that you created this community, Resilient Little Hearts, because resilience is, if we could raise up a generation of children that are more resilient, because there are things that are going to come. We can't protect our children from everything. Actually, instead of trying to do that so wholeheartedly, it's better to invest our energy into teaching them and helping them and praying for them to grow up and be resilient so they can thrive despite the challenges that are going to come their way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love that you say that, because in kind of doing this journey, I always say I'm not a parenting expert. I don't really believe they exist, because I just think we're all in this together, and it's one of those roles in life that we're learning on the job. And also, no one knows your child like you as the parent knows their child. Mm-hmm. So my intention is just to walk alongside people to share kind of learnings and understandings from child and adolescent development, because I believe that when parents are equipped, they know what to do, and they can like raise their children with their values and their boundaries and all of that sort of stuff, so that I want them to feel encouraged. And that's really the heart of my work. One of my concerns with a lot of stuff that I see online about parenting is it's very fear driven, and it makes sense. People are trying to market things, but I've never seen making a parent feel worse about themselves help them parent better. Mm-hmm. We all do better when we're encouraged. We all have bad days. We all feel guilty about those bad days. And I've never seen it work to say, well, let's make you feel even worse about those bad days, and that'll make you, relate to your children better. Actually, we just need people to encourage us. And one of my kind of internal goals is like, as we take care of parents more, they're going to just naturally take care of the children in their world.
So true. I love your perspective, because I think as moms too, we're hard on ourselves in a lot of ways. So it's always that after the kids are in bed and they look like angels while they're sleeping, you think I was so hard on them, or I yelled at them, or I didn't really think about why they were reacting the way that they did, and all the circumstances and how tired they were. Just a lot of things that we think about. And oftentimes we either hold it in and just it continues to pile on the guilt, or like you said, We try to find a source of comfort or something that we can turn to for help. And then we're told how wrong we are, and it's like, well, I'm just screwing up children. This is wonderful. And I'm just a stressed out mom all the time.
Yes.
So,
well, actually, like one of the things that I share in the book is actually that mum guilt that comes. It's actually a form of stress and exhaustion for parents. And it's one of those things, and I'm going to show myself as a real Australian right now. I will say we did live in America for the past 8 years. We've only just come back. So I'm with you in heart and spirit. But as an Australian, one of the things that you may have seen crazy Australians do is try to wrestle crocodiles. Yeah. They're like crazy. But the way that they do it is you have to grab the crocodile from behind and pin it down, or it goes into what's called a death spiral where it spins and spins and spins. And then obviously you'll get eaten by a crocodile.
Not a very good outcome.
But I think that's what mum guilt does. If we don't get good at grabbing it from behind and reframing it in our mind and practicing loving detachment, we're not God, we're not perfect. Mm-hmm. We don't have the capacity to do everything right all the time, and releasing that to God and reframing that in our own mind and grabbing it from behind, it will just continue to spin and spin and spin until we feel like we've been eaten alive by this sense of guilt. And so I think it's a real thing, especially for mums. Mm-hmm. You, like you said, you lie in bed at night and you're just listing everything, not just to do, but that you really could have done better or should have done better.
Yeah.
But there's no space there. In that too, there's no space for our children to learn humanity. Like, they need to learn that imperfection in relationships is a normal thing. They need to see parents who occasionally who occasionally or not so occasionally lose their patience, and then show them how to repair. They need to see conflict in relationships and show them how to repair, because otherwise they're going to have this idealistic but naive view of relationships, which is, there's never anything bad that goes wrong. So if you experience conflict or negative emotions, it's actually a good thing. So I think that's important to remind ourselves too on those days, as we, if there's something you need to repair for and apologize for, 100% go and do that. But don't let that guilt carry you into just this form of self-deprecation where you begin to kind of speak to yourself in such a negative way.
I love that. It's so true to demonstrate to children, because they're watching everything. And if we create a false sense of perfection and the expectations that, happiness is everything being perfect in our lives, because it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
We just don't live in fairy tales. Like, we love to watch fairy tales or read fairy tales, but life isn't that way. So I really love the mission and purpose behind your message and this community. So talk about what made you decide to create this community, and did you expect it to grow as exponentially as it did? And what did that look like as you were literally, you just got on to share your wisdom, right? Just encourage.
Yeah, to be honest, it all actually started from my very first book, which is a children's picture book. It's called The Boy Who Stood Up Tall. And I wrote it as a way of teaching children what fear is. And it's basically a metaphor of this little boy. When he stands up to his fear, he grows bigger than the thing he's fearing. And because one of the things that happens with children and anxiety, if they consistently avoid the thing that they're scared of, the fear grows. So it's about teaching children to stand up to their fear. And to be honest, I did not have any anticipation of Resilient Little Hearts growing to what it has grown to. I started the business and the company and started some social media. And then about a year or two in, I was just sharing other people's work. I just started writing some things and sharing them. And it was honestly the grace of God. I have no other kind of thing for it. It doesn't happen to everyone. I don't know what I did to make it happen. I just think at the time it resonated with people in terms of just understanding childhood development and the perspective of what's going on for kids, because I think as sometimes we do get caught up in our adult world and we forget what's going on for them and how they're feeling. And I think just understanding that side of it has been helpful for people. I don't know, it's one of those things. I'm grateful for it. It's been graced, and I'm just trying to be faithful with it.
I love that. It's beautiful to see something that you feel is such a small seed, but when God is in something, little is so much. It grows, and it shows that there is actually a huge need for this type of encouragement, and just a space where someone can see something positive and reinforce the things that we want for our children, we want to learn. And sometimes it's just a simple word that is spoken and that you read that can change the whole trajectory of your day and how you might handle a situation or speak to your kid if something happens. It can change. And consistently, what we feed into our minds is so important. It's like food. But I'm learning to value that more and more, to find and seek out. And it's almost like that magnetic field where the more that you start to change what you're feeding yourself and your mind, the more you only want and crave those things. And it can truly is life-changing. So I love reading the thoughts and the encouragement that you share. It is phenomenal. So I definitely can't wait for everyone listening to go give that a follow, because it will definitely change so many different things that you wouldn't even think of. And a lot of it I can tell comes from you. I mean, you have a master's, so you definitely know what you're talking about.
You're so funny.
There's that. I didn't even know that about you. So there's that.
No, but I love what you shared, and I mentioned it before, but I do think it's important that we pay attention to what we're feeding our mind, that if there's ever accounts or podcasts that people listen to and you're like, that actually doesn't make me feel encouraged, empowered, like thoughtful about my life, it's not necessarily something we have to consume. There's a marketing principle which, my husband and I have run businesses together for years. And so there's this marketing principle where you speak to people's fear. And that's the thing that often gets the most traction in marketing. If you speak to like their deepest fear and you make it seem bigger than what it is. And I've always had an issue with it, because even though that may be a marketing principle, it is not something that me as a person wants to promote in people's lives, is just trying to create this fear. And it is one of my concerns that's happened over the past years of social media. There's all this content out there that if you say the wrong thing, you're going to mess your child up, or if you do this one time, your child, it's just not true. It's not what the research talks about. It's not what people who actually know what they're talking about share. And so I've just really encouraged people to have a look at what content you're consuming, and is it actually, is it true? Is it kind? Is it like helping you actually? And if it is, 100% go for it. But it is important, because we're just getting bombarded by all this fear all of the time. And it's hard to stay calm and have emotional capacity for the children in our world if we are stressed all of the time.
And when you're operating from a place of fear, that's often when we freeze up the most, when we take a different action and perspective than we normally would when we're able to just relax a little bit. And even I tell myself throughout the day when something, raising, one of the challenges for me is raising a special needs child and the fight or flight mode that I feel like I'm in all day long. And there's a lot of times where I'll look back at it later and I acted like it was the end of the world that day. And I look at it later and I'm like, it really wasn't that bad. I massively overreacted here, and going back to one of the words that you used earlier, you mentioned humanity. And when our children can see, mommy and daddy, like, hey, you don't know all the stuff that goes on, like all this stuff. And you don't need to give a full blown explanation on, I had a bad day at work and I came home and, the whatever broke down and all the things that happen. But if you can just be comfortable talking about like, hey, I I'm sorry that I was so stressed out and I kind of overreacted on this thing that happened today. You know, it really isn't the end of the world. I don't want you to think that because maybe you didn't have the best grade today, that it's the end of the world, because I love you no matter what. And that is what creates resilience. It's really simple.
Yeah, so all the studies of resilience, when you look at individuals who have that kind of mental strength and capacity to do hard things, when you're looking at promoting it in children and adolescents, it really comes down to one thing, and it's a connected relationship with a healthy adult. And so really what I focus on in my work is helping adults become healthy and helping them navigate connection with their children. Because when we do that, we're actually fostering these skills in our children. And I loved the example what you shared.
Hey friends, I believe that words are so powerful. And the more we learn and discover the meaning of words and how they can be used in our life, that there's so much more than things that we think about or receive. But words actually have so much depth and meaning. If you would like to learn how to listen and how to speak with more intention, I have created a free devotional guide for you, friends, where we dive into scriptures and illustrations and examples of how we can use our words more intentionally in everyday life. I promise you, this will inspire you to think differently about how you speak. It will encourage you to think about how you can live out words in a beautiful way in your life. Click the link in the show notes or go to rachelerp.com/freebies. And you can actually download this free guide for yourself. It is a beautiful devotional that comes straight from my heart, and I wanted to share this free resource with you today. I hope you'll check it out. Once again, the link is in the show notes, or you can go to rachelerp.com, and Earp is spelled EARP, like Wyatt Earp, rachelerp.com/freebies, and get the guide for yourself, friends. Now back to the show.
And I really appreciate your vulnerability in sharing that too with being a special needs mum, because it's a reality that if you are parenting a child with special needs, or you are also if you're parenting a child who is neurodivergent, so whether they have autism spectrum disorder or ADHD or one of those things, your everyday kind of quote unquote ordinary life is more stressful than other people. And I think that's important to acknowledge for yourself, because a lot of the time the stress is invisible to other people, whether it's because they don't see what you're dealing with at home, whether it's because for children who are neurodivergent, they might mask in public, whereas they're like open at home. And so I think that's really important to mention. And I also love what you said, you know, using that example, because it's important that we say to our kids, hey, you don't have to tell them everything that happened, but hey, when I overreacted, it actually wasn't you, it was me. Right. I had something happen today. And it just is teaching them, because otherwise what children do, if there's no conversation around it, they internalize things. They naturally think it's their fault. That's their default. Yeah. If mum and dad are angry, they think, okay, it's me. And so having those open conversations, and not open that we're putting adult stress on children. I don't want to say that. Like, we don't need to make them feel like they're so aware of the finances or something that they need to solve it, but more just as simple as, hey, I had a hard day today. How I reacted wasn't you. It was something else that happened that mum's going to sort out later. That really helps them to disentangle those kind of feelings that they have.
Absolutely. And it helps them understand also, if that happens again, they might think about it more than they would if we didn't have those conversations. And we raise them into adults that are more thoughtful and understanding when other people, like that person that cut you off in traffic, or things that are just going to happen all every day, because we're human beings and we're not perfect. So I think that's important to recognize. And I love the title of your book. It's called Turn Down the Noise, for those who are listening. As soon as I read it, I just picture one of those old radios where you just turn the dialing, all the static when you're trying to, this was
doesn't happen anymore because nobody does this. It's all like, digital and so easy. But I remember the days when you're trying to tune in to that station and you have to adjust it and all the things. But we are living in a very noisy world. Mm-hmm. Our children are growing up in a way noisier world than even we did when we were growing up. So the title itself is so beautiful and I think prevalent for what we're actually living in right now. But turn down the noise. Can you tell us a little bit about what is that definition of noise that you really want to go into with your book?
I love that was the picture that you had, because that was exactly the same picture I had when I was writing it. So I'm so glad. Yeah. So, I mean, it's probably not a secret to everyone listening that we're seeing rising rates of mental illness in children and adolescents, with 1 in 3 or 4 children and teens reporting clinical anxiety or depression symptoms. We're also seeing a rise in attentional diagnoses such as like ADHD and that. And I think what is confusing a lot of parents is the awareness of what can cause mental illness as an adult. We often talk a lot about trauma. We talk about a traumatic situation, something that's happened to an adult, and that's very real and very valid. I'm not discounting that at all. But in the case with children and adolescents, a lot of times it's stumping parents because they're thinking, well, there hasn't been a traumatic situation or there hasn't been something that's caused this kind of reaction in children. And so what I wanted to bring to the conversation with this book is really about the environment that our children are now growing up in. And so when I talk about noise, I'm talking about the chronic pace of our lives, the pressure that is now on children and teens and adults, I will say. It is the lack of any kind of space and personal time. And it's also obviously media, and the whole online world has added that. And so my goal with the book is just to investigate the problem a little bit, to look at how it's actually is more prevalent than I think we're aware of, and then to give parents lots of emotional coping tools for themselves and children. And also I go through practices that you can just cultivate in your home. It's not about having a checklist and another, 4,000 things to do, because that's the last thing we need as parents. But it is about when you begin to notice that your child is exhibiting overstimulation, or they're stressed, or you're just noticing they're not themselves, there are some practices to lean into as a family, kind of turn up the ones of health and turn down the ones that maybe aren't helping them thrive.
So I love the thought of emotionally healthy children. For us to accomplish this, do you think that we as parents need to first focus on our own emotional health, or is that something that maybe you're struggling with and you are in that journey, but you can still put into place practical strategies to kind of offset? Because I feel like a lot of times children, they're watching what we do and how we respond to situations. And if we're stressed out or having our own issues, that sometimes that can create and foster an environment where they feel like they're just kind of growing up in it, and then they're taking that on and they're starting. It's a vicious cycle and pattern that just oftentimes doesn't get corrected, unfortunately. Yeah. So how do those things work together?
Yeah. So, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. You can't actually raise an emotionally healthy child if you yourself don't become emotionally healthy. Now, that's a process for both the parent and the child. It's not this the moment you give birth and they hand you the baby, you're instantly a parent, you're instantly responsible, but you're not necessarily mature and, seasoned. And so I want to say that it really is a journey. There needs to be grace for people to have seasons. I think it's important too that we define emotional health, because emotional health is not about feeling happy all the time. Emotional health is being able to experience or tolerate all of the emotions and having them appropriate for the context. So it's normal to feel sad when there's loss. It's normal to feel anger when there's injustice. It's normal to feel fear when you feel like there's a threat coming. So that's normal. That's still in the space of emotional health. And then it's about having tools to know what to do with those feelings. So when you're sad, are you talking to a trusted friend? Are you being gentler with yourself? Are you taking care of yourself? And so in the book, I go through, there's a chapter on what I've called the parents' world, which is like actually looking at our own emotional health. We talk about, whether if you have a background that's been traumatic, about chatting that through with a licensed mental health professional. And I go through multiple different coping skills of how you can like maintain your composure, how you can reframe hard things, how you can not get stuck in certain emotions, because these, just as you said before, these are often not things that, unless you were raised by a really emotionally healthy parent, you're not explicitly taught. And so that's kind of my goal in this book, is to say, hey, here are some skills. We're not going to get it perfect, but the more you grow in your own emotional health, the more you'll be able to support your child in doing the same.
So what do you think then for kids to be emotionally healthy? What does that look like? Can you kind of, for many people that are listening, maybe they have no idea because they weren't raised to be emotionally healthy. They weren't in that type of environment. So they have no idea, like, well, what does that even look like? I love that you mentioned our feelings and emotions. A lot of times people teach us that to overcome them, like fear or overcome sadness or those different things, that we need to ignore, like not feel it. And that's actually can have a very negative effect on us at some point in our life if we're constantly trying to suppress it. So what does that look like for children? To be emotionally healthy?
Yeah. So emotionally healthy children, we want to so the first thing would be to normalize every emotion. We want to make it normal to feel every emotion, because you're 100% right. There are multiple studies done that even more than venting your emotions, which is like talking about it nonstop forever and never, I'm not talking about just talking about it, but you're just going on and on and on about it. That increases the stress response in our brain and body. But even worse than that is actually suppression. So people often think, oh, it's the crazy ones talking about the emotions all the time that are the most stressed out by their emotions. It's actually the people who just push it down. We've all had that experience when maybe our spouse comes home from work and they've obviously had a really hard day, but they keep telling you they're fine. And you just wish, will you just say I've had a hard day? Like, because
you're obviously not fine.
Everyone around you can feel it, so that's really important to normalize it. So when your child is having feelings and emotions, always validating and normalizing the emotion, like, oh, I can understand why you feel that way. I would feel that way too if I was in that situation, or I felt like that way too when I was your age, or just really allowing them space for that. And then the second thing with that is that you want to, as a parent, be putting boundaries around behavior, not around feelings. So how that looks is you're allowed to feel angry, but you don't hit, or you're allowed to feel frustrated, but you don't speak that way to mum and dad. So we're always saying, hey, you're allowed to have your feelings. You're allowed to have thoughts. You're allowed to be your own person. It's a healthy, normal thing that you're feeling all of that. But then in our family, here are our boundaries about what's appropriate behavior to do with those emotions. And there's nuances with that depending on the age of the child. It's very developmentally normal for 2 and 3-year-olds. They're going to have tantrums. Children don't develop the capacity to navigate those boundaries until they're close to 5 to 7 years old. And also, if you are raising a special needs child, or again, if you're raising a child with neurodivergence, there's differences there as well. But I always say emotional health is allowing them to have all their feelings, to talk openly about feelings in your family, and just making it normal of like, mum's feeling frustrated today because that person cut me out in traffic. So I'm just going to take a few deep breaths right now and calm myself before I keep driving. And in that one moment, you've taught them, hey, it's normal to feel frustrated. And here's something I can do when I feel frustrated.
Yeah. I love that. That makes me think about so many things so differently, and how quickly we have a tendency to respond in ways that maybe we were responded to growing up, and default to those mechanisms instead of just, like you said, creating space for those emotions and for not making them feel like it's wrong to feel what's actually normal in certain situations. I had one of those like major aha, like, oh my goodness moments with my oldest son one day, because his little brother, oftentimes, and with Down syndrome kiddos, they do cross into autistic behaviors. And he was being, I have to say, my little one was being a stinker. Like, he was tormenting his brother. And I could see him ready to explode. And I knew that it wasn't going to be pretty. Like, he was going to probably do something to make Zeke cry, let's just say.
Yes.
My default reaction was to immediately go to him and say, because he started, his voice started getting higher pitched, and he started getting very angry. And I could just see this like eruption about to happen. And I thought at the time that the right thing to do was, hey, calm down. Like, don't react. He doesn't mean it. And giving all these excuses without recognizing that what he's going through at his age, and feeling the times that he probably does feel isolated, even though he does have a brother, the times that he probably feels like we're paying more attention to him than, maybe recognizing some of the things that he's going through. I just saw so many different things on his face, and I felt terrible about it. I felt a loss as, how do I help him? How do I teach him that this isn't the best reaction without being really hard on him and making him start to suppress those emotions, because that's how you deal with it.
It's such a raw situation, and I just want to again acknowledge you for sharing it, because I think we can all relate in our homes. And I think, to be honest, in the moment of heightened situation, you just need to do what you need to do to de-escalate the situation. So sometimes that's, removing them from one another. It's physically intervening if you need to. It's like, so I'm not at all advocating that you should just stand by while, in your situation, Zuko's about to get hurt. Yeah. I think it's more about how you talk to them about the situation afterwards. Because you cannot teach children principles when they're highly emotional. So when they're screaming, or when they're about to hit or do something or say something that you just like, they're about to lose it, they're not open to your like 3 points of character training at the moment. They're not listening, because their emotional brain has taken over their prefrontal cortex, which is their logical brain, and it is running the show. So think about us as adults. Like, when you've just hit the point, you're not even thinking. It's just like you're about to go into action. And so what you just need to do is exactly what you did, is just come in, let's calm down, let's change everyone, let's move the situation. I think then it's about how you narrate that back to your oldest son afterwards, in that, hey, it's totally understandable that you were feeling frustrated at that point, and I understand that it can be hard for you sometimes because of this and this and this. It's more about how we approach it afterwards.
Wow.
Because you're the leader in the home. It's not about, I'm not at all advocating, you don't need boundaries. Kids can do whatever they want. Not at all. Like, they need the parent to be the leader, and you often need to intervene in those situations. Where it hurts children is where there's never a follow-up conversation. It's just like, calm down, go there. And then that's the end of anyone saying anything to them.
Yeah.
And so if there's like a follow-up conversation of normalizing it and saying, it could be brainstorming what we could do next time to deal with the situation differently, things like that. That's where you're actually helping them navigate their emotions, but also like have safety and calmness in your home.
Yes, I love that. I kind of just took that whole thing made it just make so much more sense, because like you mentioned, when you're in the height of those emotions, that's actually oftentimes a mistake we make as parents is, oh, this is the perfect time to teach them why they shouldn't do this. And it's actually doesn't really have that effect on kids. Like a lot of times they're not listening, and then we're mad at them for not listening. But this is something that I feel as parents, it's so easy to preach at your kids, but when you're teaching them, it's so funny because I had that moment today. I tell my older son all the time, please do not put dirty dishes on this side of the sink. Put them on the other side of the sink. We always put them in the wrong side of the sink.
Yes.
So I was really annoyed at him today, and I said, it doesn't go on that side. And he just turned to me and he said, why? And I stopped and I thought, I've never told him why. I've just told him not to do it. And I was like, actually, because on the left side of the sink, I have this disposal and I can put food or debris on it. I can rinse it down, but I can't on the other side. And he goes, oh, okay, that makes sense. And I just had like this, did I really never tell you? I just, no, do it. And then expect him to just abide by my, it just made me think about things so differently. And it's such an important part of parenting. A lot of times we think that it's, just telling them and correcting them, but the conversations, like you said, it's so good.
Yeah. And I think this is why, many parents are struggling today, because we're stressed, we've got work, we've got a lot of demands on. But just like you said, we need emotional capacity left over to talk to our children, to teach our children, to disciple them, to actually show them the why behind stuff. So I love that. I think we can all relate to moments like that. But what you're essentially doing there is giving him not just the actual lesson, but the reason behind it. And I mean, maybe now he's actually going to do it. Fingers crossed.
I know. I'll let you know. In 3 months, I'll be like, Sarah, he's doing it now. Yeah, the conversations. We need more of those. So
yeah, honestly, that is if I could, encourage parents anything, just keep talking to your kids. Yeah. Even when they're frustrating you and annoying you and doing all that stuff. Most children who are challenging you are having a challenging time. Yeah. So whether it's the way that their brain navigates the world, or whether it's a situation they're going through, I think sometimes we compare their actual situation to our actual situation, and we just think it's nothing what they're going through. I wish I had their problems as a parent, but in their own world, in their own context, that's a big problem for them. That's a big stressor for them. And so as you can just keep communication open, because children who feel connected to their parents are not only more likely to grow up in resilience and emotional health, but they're also more likely to do what you're asking them to do. When there's rapport there, I'm not saying it's perfect and they always do, but it increases the likelihood when they feel connected that not everything becomes an absolute all-out fight. And so just having that connection is so, so important.
So do these principles apply to our husbands also? Marriages? I mean, I feel like these are just amazing, like, life tools that you're giving us to just think about things differently, almost remove yourself from reacting and be more thoughtful. And I'm so excited about your book. I can't wait to get my hands on this book. Just share your message with everyone who's listening. I feel like every home should have this book. Like, it's just having a guide that is, and just knowing you and the beautiful soul that you are, the way that you're going to present everything is going to just feel like a hug, like, hey, we got this, we're in it together, it's going to be okay. And this is how we can raise up a generation of children that are more resilient. I love that word. And I mean, that's a catalyst for change in the world. It starts in the homes. It really starts in the homes.
100%. I have a conviction that I mean, I feel like it's biblical as well, is that every generation is supposed to go from strength to strength. And I feel like as we can build this in our homes, because you're 100% right, as we're raising anyone who's involved in raising the next generation, we're actually helping the next generation move forward in strength.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think it's so important.
Yes, it is. It's so important. So this is an incredible work that you're doing. And I just want to encourage for those who want to connect with you more, Sarah, and is there any other spaces besides the Resilient Little Hearts like that you want to, or do we want to just encourage everyone to just start there? Tell us all the different ways.
Yeah, so I just my own website and Instagram, Sarah Boyd, sarahboyd.co. And then everything for children and adolescents is on Resilient Little Hearts. And we have a website as well. We have emails, newsletters, all that sort of good stuff. So you can come and check us out there.
And if we're having a really bad day, can we fly to Australia for coffee? Do we do virtual coffee chats?
I think we need to. I think that would be amazing, because I think we need more encouragement and camaraderie in this whole parenting thing.
Right?
Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. Well, I have learned so much just from this few minutes that we've been able to talk, and I want to thank you for taking time out. I know it was so funny, we were talking before recording the episode that it's actually a day later right now for you than it is for us here in the States. Like, that's so cool.
I'm in the future.
The time travel thing, like, the coolest ever. Thank you so much for spending this time with us, Sarah. I just absolutely adore you, and I'm so excited for your book to come out into the world.
Thank you, Rachel. I feel the same about you. It's always a joy chatting with you.
Thank you.
Well, friends, I just want to thank you for listening today. And if this show has meant something to you, please leave a review or rating on whatever platform you're listening to. Also, make sure you follow the show. This helps me continue bringing episodes like this where women can share their stories and link arms together. I hope you feel inspired and refreshed. Now get out there and hustle, girlfriends.